Hello, Facebook. I am Mike Raish, your creative organizing consultant of Western New York, and this is Put What, Where, Why, and How. And today's topic is Marie Kondo's new show, Tidying Up, on Netflix. And I specifically want to talk about the criticism that I've seen on the show. Not on the show, but criticism about the show. So I'm not actually here to necessarily criticize the show itself, but to criticize the criticism. So it's interesting to me that so many people are now have eyes on this tidying up show and are starting to think about getting their life tidied up. And that's a beautiful thing. And I think the exposure is wonderful, and that people are starting to get the idea that tidying up is very, very beneficial and can actually spark joy in your life. So what I find interesting, though, is that there's this kind of pushback, I suppose, on some of the techniques that Marie Kondo has. And I think probably the biggest critique for myself is that it might oversimplify the process of cleaning up. It doesn't just come down to, does it spark joy? I think that there's more to it. But I do want to talk about her process a bit, and I've talked about this because I've done her reviews on her book and such, but I want to talk about it because I think that people find the technique weird or uncomfortable or what have you, avant-garde. It's, first of all, she's very culturally different. She's from Japan, and most of us are from the United States, and the culture is just vastly different. And I'm not going to say that I know a whole lot about Japanese culture, because I don't. But I do know that someone from a different culture coming over here and showing off a technique that doesn't necessarily jive with us is probably due to the fact that there are cultural differences. Now, the 2 points of Marie Kondo's technique that I think are very easy to attack and also are widely known are how to decide what to keep and what to get rid of by using your intuition and figuring out what sparks joy. And then the other thing is, if you are getting rid of something, or if you're simply putting it back or putting it away, that you actually literally thank the object for serving whatever purpose it served. So, normal life here, we don't generally going around thanking our coats every time we hang them up, although Marie Kondo does suggest that we do that. So let's rewind and talk about deciding what to keep and what to get rid of. What Marie Kondo is asking you to do is hold every object that you own, but starting with an object. She suggests clothing. You hold it in your hands, you feel it, and you observe the reaction that your body has, or your mind has, or your heart has, however you want to put it, the physiological response of holding the object. And practicing this and observing whether or not it sparks joy over and over and over and over and over again, you start to build up a confidence on knowing what you want. I will say there's probably a lot of messy people out there that don't know what they want, and so therefore they just want everything because they don't know what things will bring them the most value, so they just hang on to everything. And her process is asking you to get down to the nitty-gritty and decide. Make a decision. What brings you joy? Truly brings you joy. Not, oh, well, this was a gift. Oh, this thing looks cool. But that's not the same thing. That's not the same thing as when I hold this, when I look at this, when I use this, it adds value to my life. And it's heavily criticized, I think, to hold an object and feel, because our society, especially with men, our society teaches us to not feel. We're not into feeling. We're into functionality. mostly. And objects and stuff need to both function and bring you beauty and joy. But I think that's when a Japanese woman comes into your house, asks you to hold an object and decide whether or not it sparks joy, that might be very uncomfortable, because what we're asking you to do is to feel how you feel and get in touch with your intuition. And we as Americans are not very good at that, generally speaking. We don't usually encourage people to tune into their intuition, but phone's in low power mode. And telling people to get into their intuition is very uncomfortable just because we're not used to it. But on a neurological side of things, when you practice anything, the neural pathways become stronger and therefore serve you better. So it's going to feel uncomfortable the first time you try this technique. If you hold something and you're like, does this spark joy? And you're like, I don't even know what that feels like. But then you start to hold objects and you're like, oh wow, this really does spark joy. That's exciting. Yeah, okay, now I'm starting to feel what it feels like to feel joy. And then you go through everything in your house, in your space, and if you're using the technique of this sparks joy, this doesn't spark joy, and you get rid of all the ones that don't really spark joy, and it doesn't have to give you a negative feeling, it just has to give you not a feeling of joy, then you're left with all of these things that give you that energy. The energy that you felt when you held it. You hold it, you go, huh? Imagine your whole house sparking joy. So, yes, I think it's heavily criticized because it's uncomfortable, but it's supposed to be uncomfortable, just like riding a bike is uncomfortable, or, you know, whatever it is that you might be learning to do for the first time is uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar. And we're also taught not to necessarily get in touch with our feelings because that's whatever. So the second piece is the thanking the objects. The same thing happens. So you're going through and you're asking, well, does this spark joy? Does this spark joy? You're practicing, you're creating neural pathways, and then surrounding yourself with all these joyful things. The thanking the objects feels weird and a little crazy, because why would you talk to an object? It's not going to talk back to you. But practicing the gratitude, the thank you for serving your purpose, you can go now, or thank you, I'm done using you for now. The constant gratitude is going to create neural pathways, and you're going to be more grateful for the things that you have, and therefore you will feel less pressured to have more stuff, because the stuff you have, you are grateful for and content. Not that you're not going to get more stuff, because you will, most likely. But the point is that it is going to be most likely uncomfortable for you to try Marie Kondo's technique. And therefore, people are going to quickly criticize the technique itself because it's weird, uncomfortable, and why would you do it? But then you do it over and over and over again with every single object you have, and then you're like, wow, there's actually something to this. And from personal experience, I have read her book, I have tried her process. I shouldn't say try, I did her process, and it was very rewarding. And I did the things. I thanked objects, I asked myself if this object sparked joy. I did these things. I mean, I did them alone, so I wasn't embarrassed or whatever, but I did them, and it was weird at first, but then it became fun. Oh my God, it became so much fun. So much fun to be like, yes, I love this. Yes, I love this. No, I don't. Get rid of this. Blah, blah, blah. Now I'm obsessed. And I'm so grateful for what I have, and that I don't have the weight of the things that don't bring me joy. So I would just give it a try if you are critical or skeptical of Marie Kondo's technique, but you haven't tried it, it's probably because you haven't seen the benefit or you haven't tried it. Not going to say that one technique works for everybody, because I don't think that that's necessarily true in any field. People are so vastly different and dynamic that one thing is not going to work for everybody. And that's why we have such diversity and so many different techniques that you can go about stuff. But Marie Kondo's technique obviously is very successful. She's got her own show. She's inspired millions of people, and it really does help. So just don't be so quick to judge a weird technique. From other personal experience, you know, the two techniques of thanking objects or seeing if they spark joy, they seem weird at first and they were very successful. I have had a number of very strange techniques that I've tried that have really helped in whatever the thing is. An example is the leg up on the wall technique. If you're not sleeping very well, you lay back on the ground and your feet up against the wall, and the blood flow comes down toward your head and whatnot, and it actually helps you sleep deeper and faster. And when I first heard it, I was like, that seems weird, but I'll give it a try. And there was a night I could not sleep. I put my legs up, lo and behold, I had a really good night's sleep and I had some pretty cool dreams. So, gotta try it, don't knock it. The other thing, I do see a therapist sometimes, and he uses EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique. And that's also very strange, and I wouldn't put stock into it, but it works, and it involves like tapping certain areas of your face and your chest, collarbone and such, while repeating certain mantras, and it seems kind of hoopla-y, but it really did release some emotions that I'd been hanging on to, and I can't explain it, but I don't care because it worked, right? So, try Marie Kondo's technique before you go criticizing it. Try the sparking joy, get in touch with your intuition, and be grateful. Be grateful for the things you have. If you find that you're just upset with the stuff that you have, or the relationships, or what have you, using those two techniques, does this bring me joy? And am I grateful for it? And then go ahead and be grateful for it. Those two things will start to mold your life journey into something much more beautiful and fulfilling. So, let me know in the comments if you've tried Marie Kondo's technique. Let me know if it worked for you or if it didn't work for you, or what you've tried, what does work for you. I'm very interested. Like I said, everybody's different, and it's not a one-size-fit-all situation. So please let me know what your thoughts are. But those are mine. All right, friends. I'm gonna go. Thanks for hanging out. Love you, bye.